Order in the court! Order in the goddamn court!
Sir, you're out of order.
All rise.
All right.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
What is up, Spurs Nation? You are in the courtroom with OOC. Today you got Rob, that's me from Bucking Spurs. Also joining me today is Destin from Spurs Way and Clan the Spurs Fan. And we're here to welcome our first guest on the show, Noah Magaro-George. What's going on, Noah?
Hey, not much, man. How you doing?
We're doing good. We're all trying to hold up strong during this quarantine. Destin, what are you up to, man?
Man, doing what I can, which is nothing.
I know, right? We're over here talking about Woj and what he's been dropping. I don't know if you've kept tabs on that.
No, I haven't. Wait, what has he been saying?
You want to go ahead and take him, Noah?
Yeah, so basically, from what I understand, is Woj is saying that, the NBA is trying to restart the season in the form of having sort of training camps and having the guys get together at practice facilities. But there's been a little bit of pushback. Obviously, people are a little bit scared to come back and, face the risk of getting sick. Although, I think they probably have the facilities and the stuff necessary to stay healthy. But, so that's basically it.
What do you think, Destin? Should they – what's going on is, like, certain states can go back. It depends. It's all depending on what the state is doing. So, the Spurs can be allowed to do something, and then – excuse me – and then Denver's is in a completely different world, So there's like a competitive imbalance. I think I heard the word out there a few times as well.
Yeah, I would think that would be, unfair to a lot of the players. But then at the same time, I don't know. It's like, okay – the fans aren't going to be there. All right. So since it's just the practice facilities, they do have the best care that they can have. But then at the same time, it's certain players that I thought, this is just me being naive. I thought almost every single basketball player had a court that they could just go to. But apparently that's not the case for a lot of these players, and they're just stuck in the home. So, I understand them wanting to open it up so they can get to practicing. But, yeah, that would be kind of a unfair advantage, I would think.
Yeah, and like Atlanta is like declining the option. They're like, yeah, Atlanta's kind of like they're letting us do more things, but we still kind of want to wait like another week or 2 weeks or whatever before we start doing anything. And so I don't know.
Practice facilities haven't really helped Atlanta anyway, so
yeah.
Not at all, man.
Yeah.
All
right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first topic of the day. What we want to talk about first is who is going to replace Pop. That's something I wanted to ask you, Noah, and get your take on that. There's a lot of options out there. There's the whole what a lot of people don't talk about, Noah, which I think people should, is the coaching tree that is not in house right now. I think I would be open to Mike Budenholzer coming back in and coaching San Antonio, and maybe a couple of those other guys that have left. But not that I don't want to give it to Becky or Tim Duncan or anything like that. I think they're great. But it all depends on what situation we're going to be in, right? What team are the Spurs going to be? Are we going to be a DeMar DeRozan, super veteran-led team, or do we need to go with the coach that's going to be teaching these young players how to play? Now we're talking about post-Pop. Obviously, Pop can do it all, Noah. But what's your take on the situation?
Yeah, that's so tough. So first off, they're going to have to find a direction they want to go in. Like you said, whether it be young guys or they focus on the vets. And if you're going with the young guys, I typically, at least in my opinion, I really like seeing a coach that's kind of younger, someone that has a lot of energy and is used to working with young guys. So I know this is kind of a out of left field, but I really like Bill Self. If he ever decided to leave Kansas, there's been a little bit of talk about, Self being under investigation with Kansas. Does he feel like he needs to leave? He's worked with a bunch of high profile recruits. Obviously they have a lot of really good NBA players coming out of Kansas, and I think he would be great for the young guys. But if we're talking somebody out of the coaching tree, I'm with you totally. I like Mike Budenholzer, but I'd even like to see Jacques Vaughn maybe come back. Maybe not as a head coach, maybe on the assistant coach.
Yeah.
Ime Udoka is a guy I really liked when he was with. I was sad to see him go this offseason, man.
Oh my God.
But you're right. I think it's tough with Timmy and Becky. they'd be thrust into a situation if we went with the young guys, or they'd have to be ready to rebuild. And I think that's really tough to throw to somebody in their first opportunity as a head coach,
Yeah, absolutely. Destin, what do you think, man?
Well, first off, how long do you guys think that Pop will even be here? You think, after this season, or you think next season?
Yeah, honestly, I think it might be after this year or next year, but I mean, that's like a 2-year window, but I could really see him retiring this year. It's just been really tough. We know his wife has passed.
Yeah.
He struggled this year, especially this year. They've really struggled, I think. And it just seems like it's coming to an end, doesn't it? It feels like it's coming to an end here.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to think about it kind of from that viewpoint, you can even think that maybe Tim Duncan coming on the staff was maybe him just wanting to support Greg, but not coach, but his dear friend Greg, his best friend, father figure of Greg, like just maybe he felt like he needed that rock. And he didn't want him to go through a whole season with all, a completely new team. Patty Mills is really the only guy. And I think Pop is a guy that's not an issue. I think this is an issue we're talking about. To Pop, I don't think it's really there because he's such a basketball, junkie. Does his? I mean, we could talk about Team USA too. How are those two things correlated? When he wants to leave the Spurs and when he wants to really commit to Team USA. There's a idea here that I just popped in my head, and let me see what you guys think. What about Coach Blake Ahern from the Austin Spurs?
Oh wow!
He has
that
familiarity. Would that be a shocker? What do you think? I mean,
me personally, that would be cool because he had already been, used to some of these players that have that are getting ready to go to the Spurs or transition to the Spurs. Me personally, who I would want would be Tim Duncan. And I know that's probably just me being a typical fan, but at the same time, a lot of times I understand that great players don't become great coaches for the most part. But Tim Duncan's one of those guys where I think just the aura of him being there and those guys seeing that that's the legend Tim Duncan, I think it kind of helps him. It gives him a boost, and him being used to the organization already, knowing how it's run, knowing the best plays to go with, knowing basketball as well as he does. I mean, winning in 3 different decades, and, Pop wouldn't be Pop if it weren't for Duncan. So to me, I would much rather just stay in-house with it and let Tim Duncan go ahead and take over the reins. And I know Becky, I was one of those people that really wanted Becky. But at the same time, I don't know how ready Becky is to be a head coach. But especially right now in the transition period that we're in right now, I think that it would help and benefit us a lot if Tim Duncan was there. And one thing that people don't really realize sometimes is that Tim Duncan's there all the time. It's not like he just came back from retirement. Technically, he never retired because he's always with the Spurs. He's always at the practice facilities. He's always keeping in contact with the players. So if it were me,
he's still on the payroll.
Yeah. So if it was me, Tim Duncan, I would just want Tim Duncan to go ahead and come in and do his thing, because I think he could actually be the first just great coach from player. Some people say Steve Kerr, but I digress.
What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I mean, I'd love to see Timmy come and coach. Obviously he's coaching, but as a head coach. And I think something interesting you said there is, not a lot of great players become great coaches. But I think what sets Tim apart is when you see coaches who used to be great players and they really struggle, a lot of times those coaches, they were like the best at what they did when they played basketball, right? They were the best athlete. They had the best mind. They never really struggled. They didn't go through the struggles that an average basketball player goes through. And I think with Tim Duncan, for a while there, he, maybe he wasn't the best athlete ever, but he had a really good head on his shoulders. He understood everything. And with him, you have to look at his whole career. He was injured and had a lot of leg troubles towards the end of his career. And he extended his career with his basketball IQ, his leadership. And I think that's something that he would not struggle with. As a coach, he could come in and he could talk to the guys, having played with some of them, and also understanding where they came from. So I think, if a guy like LeBron coached, he may struggle because, why can't you do that? I could do that. But with Tim, he worked hard. Not that LeBron doesn't, but Tim worked hard all the time. So I think it would be great to see him as a coach. I don't think he would struggle at all.
Yeah, and another thing is a lot of those coaches or a lot of those players that become coaches, how many of those players, those great players, became coaches for the same franchise that they've been with most of their career?
That was going to be my next point, Destin.
Yeah.
When it comes to Timmy, the conversation is strictly Tim Duncan or Becky Hammon. I think like for San Antonio, it's like it's got to be Tim. Like I don't think any of us can envision Tim Duncan coaching, for another team. But I mean, I think we can all envision Becky Hammon maybe getting a job somewhere else and for some other franchise. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
if you're talking about culture and all those things, not that she's not a part of our culture. I mean, she was a silver star for a long time. I mean, she's awesome. Becky's. I've seen Becky. I actually went to a clinic one time where Becky did a little demo or whatever. I got to take a picture with her. She's great. But at the end of the day, it's like it's Tim Duncan. It's San Antonio.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Riverwalk, old man Riverwalk himself.
All right, cool. So we're gonna keep it moving. The young guys. That's the next topic. Let's talk about which one of them, how many, how long, whatever you want. Let's list a few of them off. You got Luka, Keldon, Quindary from this year, but let's not forget about Chimezie, who's been, kind of a mystery in a big way. Many different ways. We got Drew Ebanks down there, and we even got a couple other guys that are that have been around for a long time. Jeff Ledbetter or whatever. Noah, which one of those guys are your favorite dudes to like keep tabs on, and that you want to see succeed rather quickly in a Spurs uniform rather than an Austin uniform?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously Luka was our highest pick this year, and he's only played in I think 1 or 2 games. He obviously didn't really make any impact, but if you watch any Austin Spurs games, even though he struggles a little bit here and there, he has such incredible flashes of versatility. He can pass. He's switchable as a defender. He can shoot, really spread the floor. And he's super athletic. Like, I don't know if y'all realize this, but his 38.5-inch vertical was higher than guys like Dwight Howard and Blake Griffin at the NBA draft combine. So he can really get it up. I mean, he doesn't really have the strength to finish through contact, but that pure athleticism and his skill set, it's really tantalizing for me. I'd love to see him get some playing time. That's a guy who I'm keeping my eye on.
What do you think, Destin?
I thought it was funny that you mentioned Jeff Ledbetter because I love Jeff Ledbetter, but he is the most frustrating basketball player I've ever seen. He's like, to me, he's one of those guys that he makes other players better, but it's like he would be more suited to being like a trainer because he's so fundamentally sound, but then he just doesn't. He's not on that level of NBA.
Maybe one day, whenever his playing days are over, he's not physically gifted to make it in the NBA. But I mean, he's been in the G League. He's been with the Austin Spurs for a long time. He's our sniper, man. He led us this year in 3 points made and 3-point percentage. So I mean, he's doing his job. He's doing his job for us over there.
But the player that I want to see like the most of as far as the young guys, I do like Chimezie Metu. Now, at first, I was not crazy about Chimezie Metu, but after watching him a little bit, I'm like, okay, this dude is pretty doggone good. But one player I really want to see is Luka. Like, that's the one player where I've seen him play, and I wasn't 100% on him at first, especially when we got him in the draft. But the more I watch him, the more I'm like, dude, this guy reminds me of Jokic. Like, he goes out there, he's so calm, so laid back, and the game just kind of comes to him, and he's not afraid to take shots. He'll just let it fly. He's so natural with the ball. The only thing with him is he's probably going to need the same treatment that Lonnie probably gets as far as staying focused on defense, not making too many mistakes. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe the fundamental side of it, but just his natural raw ability. Dude is extremely skilled. His ball handling, hit for that size, the shooting, just everything. So if it's one player that I want to see the most of right now, it will be Luka. I feel like I know what the ceiling is for Keldon. I just have a feeling that he's going to be a really good I don't want to say role player because I know that has like a bad, ring to it, but he's going to be a really good role player to me. I think Lonnie can be a star, but Luka, I don't know, man. It's like the sky's the limit for that guy because I really do believe in him, especially in this new NBA.
Yeah, you know what? Let's keep it rolling with Luka here. Man, I honestly, when we drafted him and I started seeing what he can do, and it's not that he did, like you said, no, not that he does anything too crazy, but he's just so versatile. He can just do it all. It's just like he doesn't do it he's coming in a package. His 6'10" frame, his huge leap, his 19-year-old age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're getting this kid, out of Croatia, a Croatian basketball player. Yes, thank you. Any day of the week and twice on Sunday. In a Spurs uniform, hell yes, it's a match made in heaven. Okay, so like yes, it's the most exciting prospect I think because we don't know. And when we drafted him, I was like, I honestly think his ceiling is like Dirk. It's like Dirk level. It's like he doesn't have to be so athletic to score the basketball. He's so smart, like you said. His IQ is off the charts. But not only does he score well, he facilitates well. He sees the floor. He noticed like, oh, this guy's up here. Let me cut back door. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're 6'10" guy that's standing out there on the 3-point line, who's a lethal catch and shoot player, can also beat you with his mind. He has like a point guard IQ, I like to say. He's point guard savvy because he can grab that ball off a rebound and just take off down the court and do a point guard thing with it, drop a dime or finish or whatever it is. His skill set is off the chart. So it's just waiting though, like Destin, I think like it's going to be like a Lonnie thing. It's going to be like 3 years from now. It's going to be 3 years from now, maybe where he takes that spot from Trey Lyles once his contract comes off the books. You know what I mean? Or maybe we bring back Trey, but maybe Luka then earns that spot. He's going to have to earn it one way or another. It's funny that you said KJ role player because absolutely, dude. Keldon Johnson's going to be the best freaking role player that we can ever ask for, right? But I'm here watching I was up like till 3 a.m. last night watching the back-to-back episodes of The Last Dance. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Keldon Johnson, very identical style play to Dennis Rodman.
Oh, yeah.
Very identical. They don't need the ball, and they just go out there and get it.
I think this is kind of a lofty comparison, but for me, when I look at him, and I know this is crazy maybe, but I see Bruce Bowen all the way. Bruce Bowen was a guy who didn't need the ball, who he chased the ball. Maybe he didn't get a bunch of blocks, he didn't get a bunch of steals, the counting stats, but he was a great defender. And I think Keldon could be the exact same way. Keldon has that tenacity, that energy. It's like he's never tired out there. We've seen that in Austin, we've seen that in San Antonio, and I think role player may have a bad connotation to it. But when you talk about Bruce Bowen, he's one of the best role players ever. And if that's what Keldon Johnson could turn into, that's all you can hope for. That's great. That would be awesome.
Yeah, he's so fundamentally sound. Like every single time I see him, I automatically say this dude should be in the NBA because he doesn't try to do too much. He doesn't do too little. He just goes out there, plays his game. He can fit. He's one of those players that could fit with any team in the NBA. And there's not many guys that can do that, but he is so fundamentally sound. So I could see him play for any team and be successful at what he does. Similar to even somebody like, I know play styles are totally different, but even somebody like Kyle Anderson, like when we had Kyle Anderson, I saw his playing style. This guy could go anywhere. Like just the way,
that's
just
a good
his
one.
his fundamentals, his defense, his tenacity, his shooting. Getting around the paint. I was like, this guy can play anywhere. So yeah, looking at Keldon, by far, he's going to be one of those guys that in the future is going to really help us a lot. It's kind of frustrating, and I guess all of us kind of frustrated by it, but it felt like this whole season we kind of needed some more defense, and then seeing him near the end of the season, it's like he should have been playing. I don't even know if he needed to be in the G League, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, but I kind of feel like Pop and the rest of the front office, they kind of see the G League as like a rite of passage. So, unless you're like a Tim Duncan or a David Robinson or Sean Elliott, you're a top pick, I really don't think you're going to be playing like that, even if you deserve to, because in my opinion, and I'm sure y'all agree with this, I think Lonnie, Keldon, maybe not Chimezie, although he showed some flashes, those guys deserve minutes out there. I mean, you saw Bren struggling to defend, and he was third in the team in minutes, man. You can't expect anything better from the defense if you're going to have Bren Forbes, and nothing against him, man. He tries, he tries hard, but trying doesn't get you anywhere, So I think they definitely deserve minutes just for their defense alone.
You know what? I'm sitting here. I was sitting here a lot during the season, just thinking the same thing that you guys were. And I still do. I still question why, if it was the rite of passage type of move, and they just really do trust the process. You know what I mean? They just really do trust Austin to do their jobs, right? Because they've proven so. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, man, I want Keldon up here. I want him to get some run. I want, Chimezi or Drew to get some run. But then I'm watching Spurs games, and you know what I'm noticing? I'm noticing that Jakob is barely getting any run. I'm seeing that Lonnie was barely getting any run for so long. And I'm sitting here, how am I going to expect them to give KJ and anyone else down there run over those guys? And I think it got to the point, at towards the end of where the season ended, that it was a necessity that we needed Keldon Johnson on the team and on the floor. But I think they knew that already. I think that they already knew that from maybe even training camp, since they got him in the building, they already knew what he can do. But it was just like, man, like, I don't know. The Spurs are that team that makes those decisions. But that they're loyal. They'll make the loyal decision. They'll tell you your time is coming. Trust it, and it does come. But it's you have to, it's very hard for them, I feel, to throw that young player in, like you said, Noah, unless it's a top pick or Kawhi Leonard, you know what I mean, who's just a freak of nature. Then it's just, how else do you jump everyone else that's putting in the work? And that goes to the same conversation to Bryn Forbes. We had this conversation on the pod or on a video a few last week or so, Destin, where it was like I felt the Spurs did the very classy move and gave Bryn Forbes all the slack and all the opportunity in the world to try to go out there and get himself a pretty nice contract, because he's going to be a free agent, right? With the Spurs or without, it was like, here, you put in your time, you're undrafted, you earn your spot, you produced for us last year in the playoffs, we trust you now, and this season he just underperformed.
I guess the thing with Bryn Forbes is it's so frustrating because, like Noah said, yeah, he tries on defense, and I think that, similar to maybe Patty Mills in a way, like I think Patty Mills is by far a superior defender, but I feel like with Bryn Forbes, if he had some length on him, if he was a little taller, if he did have a longer wingspan, he will be an excellent defender. It's just his size, and that's not necessarily his fault. But at the same time, it is our fault for playing him in that situation. But like you said, Rob, like the thing is, I think you said this on the other pod. Like the thing with him is, okay, if you play him and he plays well this season, you set him up. You can think about, give him a bigger contract, or, let him go, whatever, however you want to do it. But if he underperforms, you don't have to spend as much money on him. He probably will stay. Yeah. And he could be that, role player.
So was it worth the risk for the Spurs to do that? I kind of feel like it might be, because they might be able to bring Bryn back on a very team-friendly deal.
Dude, it's totally worth it this season, because we might not even have a season.
Wait, are we sacrificing a season now for Bryn Forbes?
I think it's pretty crazy, though. I mean, when you think of Bryn Forbes, you do think of that guy with a great story.
Mm-hmm.
He can shoot the lights out, or, I mean, he did last year. This year he's been really streaky. But I'm not really sure it's worth it, because, even though he hasn't necessarily produced, or we said he has underperformed, I think a lot of teams around the league probably look at him and go, wow, he's overperformed. He's a double-digit scorer. He's near 40% from the three-point line. And we don't want him in the role that the Spurs are playing him in. Teams are probably looking at him and seeing he's coming off the bench. He's going to shoot threes. He'll probably play 20 minutes night max. And so I think the Spurs have raised his value to the rest of the league in terms of, as a three-point specialist. But if they want to retain him, I don't think I would match another team if they're going over, $5-6 million a year. He just cannot play defense. And if he's on this team, I honestly, and Pop is coach, I don't see him playing less than 25 minutes a night. Pop has said on multiple occasions, he's the hardest worker. I really respect him. He hustles. Well, we know Pop respects that, but clearly that's not getting the job done for Forbes.
Well, I think what it's going to come down to is that someone's got to take his spot. I think ultimately, you give him the opportunity to prove himself. Okay, well, now he did that. Now someone's got to make Coach Pop look stupid for playing Bryn Forbes over them. And, Lonnie showed that in flashes. Keldon Johnson showed that in flashes. But you said, I don't want to lose Bryn. The last thing that I want to do is see Bryn Forbes in another jersey. And that's from straight from the heart. And that's because shooting is a freaking premium in this league. It's all what the whole league's about, and yes, we need to make Bryn Forbes more successful at his job. I feel that that's on the Spurs. I feel like, so I feel like we lost Davis last year shooting, man, god dang. Like, and then you see him in Washington, and for half of the season, he was like the leading 3-point, I don't know, whatever. And he was just getting mad buckets because they don't play any defense in Washington, right? But
dude, he was on pace to make 300 threes this year. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I don't want to see happen with Bryn Forbes, because at the end of the day, we need the shooting.
It's weird with the Spurs because it's like we're in an identity crisis, and I felt like this the whole season. I felt like this last season where it was like we don't really have identity. Now, you could excuse it last season because of everything that happened with the Kawhi thing and, just now getting DeMar DeRozan, and all these pieces weren't even for DeMar. And we still made the best out of it. Went to Game 7 in the first round. Cool. But this year especially, it's like, dang, we really had an identity crisis. And in the offseason, it looked like we were going towards our strength, which would be defense. Derek White's a great defender. DeJounte Murray's a great defender. Jakob is a really good defender. So I was thinking, okay, we try to get Marcus Morris. You know what happened with that. We get Carroll. You know what happened with that. But it just seemed like this whole season we have all these pieces that are pretty good pieces, but it just felt like they didn't mesh together. And it's frustrating because I really did want us to just play on our strength, which would have been defense. But it's kind of hard to do that when you do have, like Noah said, you have Bryn Forbes who plainly can't play defense, but I want to keep him too, Rob. Like, I love Bryn Forbes. I've been high on him. He's one of those guys that I don't really rant about as much as I might rant about another player. Like, I love him. I love guys like him and Patty. Like, they hustle, they play hard. It's just really frustrating because it's like, man, these pieces just don't seem like they mesh together. I don't know what it is. It's really weird.
I think they were battling all year. And here's what I think about that is you have two different eras of basketball, right? You got the vets and you got the young guys. And I think the veterans came into the season maybe a little bit disgruntled, also a little bit complacent. We saw DeMar have a really good season individually, but LaMarcus didn't really start shooting those threes, doing pretty well until like half of the year had gone. And by then, we're probably out of the playoff race. You got DeMar. He's not playing. He's not happy. The other DeMar Carroll. And then you've got the young guys who are hungry and they want those minutes and they're not getting it. And it's so like, I think both sides got a little bit disinterested and they were getting frustrated and everybody wants to have each other's back, in the media, in the public eye. But I don't really think they had each other's back on the court out there. And I don't think they really meshed ever because of that.
Yeah. You know what? To wrap up this little topic here, I've never been so grateful to have Patty Mills on my team than it was this year, because he was our third best player all season long until maybe the last like 15, 20 games. I mean, I think he really hit that wall. I mean, he did come off a crazy summer with Australia and stuff in the FIBA games, but Patty Mills, we're thinking about you, bro. We're thinking about Australia and the wildfires. Hopefully everything is kind of cooling down over there and getting back to normal. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about DeJounte Murray, and then we're going to talk about if there is a 2020 NBA draft. We're going to talk about, I think, maybe all of us in here, our favorite player in that draft, right when we come back. What's going on, Spurs Nation? You're back listening to the OOC Pod. Today with me again, I got Destin from Spurs Wave and Clan the Spurs Fan. Hey, Destin, why don't you tell everybody out there where they can find you, man?
Oh, yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's Spurs Wave or Spurs Dynasty. I'm starting to post way more on Spurs Dynasty, so make sure you follow that. And you can subscribe to me, Clan the Spurs Fan, on YouTube and Clan the Spurs Fan on Facebook.
Noah, where can people find all the things that you got going on?
Yeah, you can pretty much find me anywhere on Pounding the Rock. I write for them. They're a SB Nation subsidiary, so go ahead and read all the articles I have coming out. And you can also follow me on Twitter at @n_Magaro. I'll be, putting stats out there, some cool videos, throwback videos and stuff. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. No, I was on your site actually the other day and reading your article on you had a few articles on DeJounte. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain on DeJounte. And there was a quote in there that I really liked because I kind of believe it to be true. And there was a lot of times this season where I was asking myself this question. I was asking myself, man, I know that they're boys and all, but can DeJounte and DeMar, does that combo really work for anybody? You know, and I think you had an article talking about DeJounte in the game that he had, or maybe the few games that he had. I remember one of them was against Utah, where he kind of just went off when DeMar was having back spasms and he was out for a few games. That kind of let DeJounte kind of run with the ball. And it showed that he can produce if we give him the opportunity. So what are your take, not on just this season? I mean, we can always context DeJounte Murray's season this year as his first year back off his injury, right? And kind of give that context to it. But I don't know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on his overall performance this year?
Yeah, so I think we saw tremendous growth. I think a lot of people see DeJounte and they went, oh, you know, he's just a defender, a scrappy guy, lanky guy, energy guy. And this year he's kind of transformed himself into a better facilitator. We've seen that mid-range shot money. He's like top 5 in percentage from mid-range. Mm-hmm. That's absolute money for him. And then even at the three-point line, I'm not really sure exactly the percentage, but I think it hovers somewhere around 37%. That's pretty good. I mean, it is a low volume shot for him, but just seeing him knock down shots like that. And overall, I mean, we still saw his great defense. I think moving forward, he's definitely a guy you can build around. Maybe he's not like your number one option, but he's definitely a guy who could make an all-star team, at least in my opinion.
What do you think, Destin?
I like DeJounte Murray a lot. Going into this season, I'll just be like completely honest because, you know, I can't go back on it. All offseason, I said Derek White should go into the season starting. But at the same time, I understand that the Spurs invested a lot in DeJounte, and they really do believe in DeJounte, and they want to just go ahead and give him that starting position. And I know at this point it might be hindsight to say maybe Derek White should have started most of the season, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is. I mean, does starting Derek White necessarily equate to more wins this season? Probably not. I mean, this team was all around pretty bad, but DeJounte Murray individually, I think he played pretty doggone good. His defense is still A1. I also realized that he's still coming off that injury. So, and Becky talked about that on a few occasions. So he wasn't 100%. Yeah, his mid-range was really good, like Noah said. His point shooting was much better. His facilitating, actually, it felt like it got better as the season progressed. Other than like him coming into the season, it was better. It seemed like it just got better as the season went on. And I think that he's definitely a part of the future. And I think that him and Lonnie Walker together is going to be really nasty. I think just overall right now is just these pieces don't fit. So that's why it looks so bad because, you know, you have DeJounte who's not necessarily a consistent shooter. He wants to be the leader, but he's not a consistent shooter. And then your two vets that's on the court together, they're not, very consistent. You got DeJounte Murray who can play really good defense. So the team, the guards would just go towards Brenton Forbes or even DeMar DeRozan at times. So overall, it was just a bad season. But as far as DeJounte Murray is concerned, I'm high on him. I think that when these young guys coming up with him, it's going to be pretty nasty. It's going to be pretty nasty, especially when we find our identity. He should be a part of that nasty identity. We need a nasty defensive team, and I think that's the direction that we should go in.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, if you're talking about like building a defensive team, I think you want to put DeJounte Murray at the head of that snake for a lot of different reasons. And one of the big things that I thought about right now is kind of to your point, Noah, a little while ago is I think that DeJounte is that guy. I think DeJounte is that guy that the Spurs want to build around. But here's where I'm kind of tug of warring between. I think that the Spurs are absolutely right and should build the future culture of the San Antonio Spurs to help do that, bestow that trust and responsibility onto DeJounte. I think DeJounte is that guy who needs to be the new leader, to be the new guy that's going to be around in the locker room for the next 13 years or whatever, 12 years, and really keep Spurs culture alive. Now, I think on the court, we need to be building around Lonnie. Now, I don't want to start talking about Lonnie Walker too much right now. I kind of want to talk about DJ, but that's just kind of my thought on all of that. I think that DJ had a pretty a pretty good season. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad. I think defensively he showed that he's right there still, right where he picked off, right where he left off, at 1.7 steals a game this season. So 2 years ago he averaged 1.2, right, and he was like second team all defense. So I mean his defense is still there. And then the rest of it is kind of a question mark to me. I know that he went off in January and February from the mid-range. Like you said, Noah, he started shooting it more, and a lot of that had to deal with either one or the other being out, and LaMarcus Aldridge or DeMar DeRozan. It was always during that time where we asked him to step up. I'm pretty sure it wasn't by coincidence. I'm pretty sure Pop and the coaching staff went up to him and said, hey, these guys are out. You're that guy now. All right. So now you need to look to be a little bit more aggressive, which begs the question of is this team holding him back? You know what I mean? I think are we better with a DeJounte led team? And I think the answer is yes. I don't necessarily think it's this year. It wasn't this year. I don't think it's next year either, maybe, because he has to improve on his inconsistencies. I think throughout the season, and again, that was coming off the injury. I believe that it was just dealing with the rigor of a full NBA season, the grind, the travel, this and that, the rest, the rehab, the minute restriction, all these things that were on his plate this year kind of led to a lot of inconsistencies, but he did show, what he can do well. And there were spurts, where he showed that he can do it for more than just one game at a time. And I think moving forward, defense is a priority. DeJounte's got to be the guy that we put the culture on, and we have to build around him in a lot of different ways. But I'm not so sure if it's like he's our best player.
Yeah, here's why I think it actually, he may be the best player. Is I know you said that he had some inconsistencies here and there, and I think a lot of that is, one, he was coming off of a pretty serious injury. But two, I think a lot of basketball is rhythm, right? Getting the ability to shoot the ball, getting those shots up, having the ball in your hands. And he is a ball-dominant guy. He's not really so much of an off-ball guy. And we definitely saw him take a step forward without DeMar. Right here, I'll give you just a quick stat. So over his last 11 games, and a lot of them missing DeMar, he averaged nearly 15, 6, and 6 on nearly 50, 40, 90, from the field. And that was for 11 games without DeMar. And I think, that if that's the kind of production he can give you, and that's in less than 30 minutes, if that's the kind of production he can give you in a, 12-game spurt without DeMar there, I think that's enough evidence, at least to me, that it's okay to move on from DeMar. I'm not saying DeMar isn't a good player, but I just think DeJounte is the future and a guy who you want to build around. And I know we're not talking about Lonnie too much yet, but, he is great at a few things right now. And you can definitely see that ceiling is super high, but is he going to reach that? He's shown, I think, of all the young guys, the most inconsistency this year.
Yeah, no, Lonnie has been guilty of that. What do you think, Dustin?
No, I think DeJounte Murray has a lot, in his arsenal. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of fans have just been hooked on to the Houston game when it came to Lonnie Walker. But as far as if I'm looking at Lonnie Walker or DeJounte Murray is probably the better defender. But then when I look at Lonnie Walker, it's like, man, he's one of those guys where you see snippets of it. And I feel like maybe right now, maybe Murray is better. But I think when time goes on, I think Lonnie Walker is going to be the most dominant player on the team, because even in certain situations, every single time, every game that I've seen, and I've probably only missed like 3 or 4 games this season, but when we needed a shot, when we needed something to happen, Lonnie Walker made something happen. And I know that we don't like to, or we shouldn't just compare him to, players of old, but that's kind of like how Manu was in a way, where when it gets close to at the end of the fourth quarter and we need a shot or we need something to happen, Lonnie Walker does something. And I can't really put my finger on it, but every single game that I've seen him, it's something coming out of him with limited amount of time, mind you, with, Pop not giving him a whole bunch of time. But when he goes in there, it's something that he does where I'm like, man, I never seen that before. That was clutch. You got a lot of heart, and it's just something about Lonnie Walker where he just has it. He just has that it factor. So, and the thing is, Rob, like you said, you would build around Lonnie, and I kind of agree with you as far as building around Lonnie. And I think we talked about this before too, but I mean, what would be the difference really? Because I want to get Noah's insight on this too. Like, what is the difference between building around Lonnie and building around DeJounte? Like, would it look kind of the same, or do you think that it would be totally different what that would look like?
Man, yeah, that's tough. So, when I say build around DeJounte, I don't mean to like necessarily give Lonnie the backseat, right? I think if you're speaking about building around, I think you should build around both of them. And I think they could operate as kind of like a 1A, 1B kind of thing. And I do think both of you are right. I think Lonnie has the higher ceiling. He does show me things that I go, wow, I have not seen that. Or, wow, he just did something that was so clutch or so incredible that, maybe DeJounte doesn't do so often. But I think if you're building around Lonnie, then you need guys who, can get him the ball, at least at this stage, because a lot of times you'll see him be a little bit uncomfortable to create his own shot, a little bit uncomfortable with the ball in his hands. And sometimes he can be a little bit lazy with the ball. Turnovers are going to happen when you're young, but Lonnie seems to be especially turnover prone, especially when he's driving to the rack. It's like he maybe doesn't have the strength quite yet, or, he doesn't know how to maneuver the ball out of the way of a defender's reach, but it's something that DeJounte doesn't really do as much as Lonnie does.
We kind of have a theory that he doesn't know he doesn't know yet how to like control his own athleticism.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Yeah.
He has the Kawhi syndrome, man. I think because I remember a period of time where Kawhi just took the back seat. And I guess he had Tim Duncan, but he took a back seat, and it was like, dude, you are really good. You could probably take over if you just, let it rip. And it seems like the same thing with Lonnie. It's like he has it. Yeah. And for the most part, I guess this is a good reason, Pop, because I've never really seen Pop really yell at a player for not taking a shot, for not, being dominant. So I think that's a really good sign. And he just doesn't – I really do believe that. Like you guys said, like he just doesn't know how good he is at all.
Yeah, definitely not yet.
Not yet. He will. He's got the mindset and the work ethic to get it done. I mean, if you look at the difference between his body from year 1 to year 2, it was like, holy shit. It's like, put on some weight. And so it's like now it's like, oh, man, year 2 to year 3 and so on and so forth. I mean, he's going to have the work ethic and the mindset to be a great player. And I think to answer your question, Destin, like what I think about when you say what the difference is, I mean, it's you really got to ask, well, okay, what are their, like, if you're going to build around Lonnie, then you need players that are going to be able to rebound and get him the ball. But if you're going to build around DeJounte, you need guys to space the floor for him. And it kind of creates a mixed match. But I mean, I think Noah, I think you kind of lend to this point too, is that we're here asking ourselves, who we should build around. And I think both these two players absolutely positively complement each other. And I think the draft pick in Lonnie Walker might have been, hey, that might be a real nice compliment to DeJounte, like maybe 3 or 4 years down the road from now. So I think maybe they're ahead of us. It might be possible that the Spurs know a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes than us, but I mean, we like to talk about it anyway. So let's kind of keep it moving here. If the draft comes out, there's a few names that are on my mind that I like, and a few of them off the top, like Obi Toppin, right? Obviously, Weissman, right? Those are two. If we're gonna look at big dudes, those are two guys I feel would fit into what we need at the current moment. But my number one guy who I would make a trade for, Denny. How do you say his last name? Avdija. I would trade for his ass, because I think when you put him next to like just think about him next to like DeJounte and Derek and Lonnie, right? Okay, yeah, you get all excited, right? But imagine his ass next to Luka, and you have Luka and this dude on the floor at the same time with Lonnie and a Trey Lyles or Jakob or someone else, at your 5. There's such, so the potential there. I shouldn't just say potential. Let me clear this. What exactly what I mean. The potential of Spurs basketball to reincarnate itself like the freaking rising phoenix from the ashes, and to have like an up-tempo, move the ball, penetrating dish style play, to me is like, damn, Luka was one of those pieces. Luka was one of those steps, kind of getting back to that. And I feel like Denny would be like the cherry on top to a beautiful Spurs, like 2014 beautiful game Sunday. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal, man. I would love to see Denny in a Spurs uniform. You know, I've been really high on him since the summer. I watched him play in the FIBA Under 20 championships, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was killing it. I mean, he was clearly better than any of the other guys out there. And my only concern with him is he's kind of like Luka is right now, where he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. And I think the Spurs developmental staff, they could easily help him refine those skills. And I'd love to see him in a Spurs uniform. So, you know, for the exact same reasons you said, I'd love to see him in a Spurs uniform, you know, getting out there, dishing the ball, playing good defense, you know, taking, you know, smart shots. You know, he's a basketball player. When I think of the Spurs, I think, wow, he would fit in with them perfectly.
Yeah, he's also exactly what we need. I mean, we've been searching for that small forward spot. I mean, we really need that small forward spot, which seems like a spot that we've actually struggled with for a long time until we got Kawhi. And then now he's gone. So, yeah, we need that small forward spot again. So he's like a small forward / power forward, right? So I think that would be great. I mean, that's ideal. And I believe that the Spurs have been scouting him this whole time. Like pretty
They
hard.
have, yeah. They scouted him and Pop met him for one of those Basketball Without Borders camps. So they're familiar with each other. They know each other, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what do you guys – do you think that we'll – because you're saying trade up. Do you think we'll just get the pick or –
I think they would have to trade up at this point. You know, I did say earlier his stock has kind of fallen a little bit. People aren't really sure about his shot and his athleticism, kind of like similar to Luka. And I'm not saying like he's a Luka Doncic because he isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it seems like he's probably going to fall in that, you know, 9 to 4 range, somewhere in there. And the Spurs just, you know, they're just barely missing it. But I could see them trade up for that. Now, what they would have to give away to get that, I'm not sure. But I could definitely see them moving up.
Yeah, he's someone that like you said, he will be a project. He will be a project. And to kind of point at like why we always never really had a really good small forward, well, I mean, that's because for 20 years, our 3 guys were at the power forward. You know, we you know, Tim Duncan, the big 3, you know, we just needed a guy there who didn't need the ball and can just like hit a corner 3 and play some defense. You know, it's like, so we always kind of had the older veteran guy in that spot. If it, for those years, if it wasn't Bruce Bowen, it was, I don't know. It was
like Ime Udoka.
Yeah. Ime Udoka. Yeah. What's the other guys I was just thinking about? Richard Jefferson was spotted there. Steven Jackson spotted there towards the end of their careers. Like, you know what I mean? We kind of just use a rotation. Or we would like just bring some guy out for a 10-day contract and he'd be starting for the Spurs for a few games and then he'd be gone at the power forward spot. But yeah, I don't know. Any last thoughts, guys, on Denny?
I'm huge on him. I hope that we can get him. I'm kind of I hope that you guys can kind of enlighten me on this because I'm a little confused with how the draft might work this season. So is it a done deal that we wouldn't get a lottery pick at this point?
No,
so
man.
Pretty much from my understanding of the situation is there would still be a lottery process for those 14 teams that would have missed, you know, the playoffs. So if the NBA decides, okay, we're going to move forward and the season is done, they would just base it off of the standings today and they would enter everyone into the lottery. But with that being said, the people would have lottery odds that would be, you know, weighted with how bad their record was. So it's not like the Lakers would get the first pick. That would be such a slim chance. So, you know, either way, there's going to be a lottery. It's just how is that lottery going to work?
Okay, because right now, as it stands, we're what, like 12th or something?
I think we're like 11th or 12th, somewhere in there, yeah.
So if you guys could trade up to get him, if it was possible, if let's say like he was gonna get picked at 4, but I don't know who, let's just say that Atlanta had 4, and Atlanta's like, hey, we kind of, you know, we have this spot, we're gonna take Denny, you know, do you want him or you know what do you got? If you're RC Buford or you're Brian Wright now, if you're Brian Wright in that chair and you get that call, and you have to make an offer. I mean, obviously you would switch picks, right? So they would get your pick right there at 11 or 4 or 12 or whatever that is. And I mean, you would maybe try to not lose a player and offer him maybe a future first round pick. That's my opinion. And if I had to move a player, it would have to be, it's sad to say, but it would have to be these young guys in like Chemezi, Drew, Quindary, and Quindary's going to be a stud, man. Just watch. It's just there's so many. I don't know about maybe Bryn. But Bryn's gonna be a free agent. We're not in a position to do that. You know what I mean? So it's just I don't know what to do. If there's a player, who would you guys throw in that mix?
I mean, I would throw anyone in there that name isn't DeJounte, Keldon, Lonnie, White. I would probably throw anybody else in there.
And Luka.
I doubt they would really want Patty. I wouldn't want to get rid of Patty, but other than those guys, I mean, I would throw anybody else in there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. Being in the top 4 like that, or even top 5, it's going to take a lot to pry a pick away. Even if you just have the 11th pick, you're moving up 7 spots, giving them your pick, they're going to want something in return. And I just don't think Bryn or, one of those secondary guys who aren't really, a building block are going to get it done. I think it honestly, and I hate to say this because it kills me to say it, I absolutely love Derek White, but I think it would take him to get the deal done. Atlanta, assuming Atlanta had the pick, even if, Detroit or Minnesota had the pick, they could use a guy like Derek White who, he may be listed as a point guard, but to be honest, he's a combo guard. He's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He can fit anywhere between those 2 guard positions, and he's a great defender. I know a lot of people maybe around the NBA may not know that, but Spurs fans know he's a great defender. He can shoot the ball. He can facilitate. I think it comes down to his opportunity. So his stock may be a little bit lower, but I think teams have done their homework. Front offices have done their homework, and I think it would take a Derek White to get it done. Because I wouldn't give up DeJounte. I wouldn't give up Lonnie. I wouldn't give up any of the other young guys. I don't even think they would take him. So I do think it would take a Derek White, as much as that pains me to say.
Oh, no, forget it. Forget it. I don't want him. Just kidding.
That's tough. That's tough because it's crazier things have happened. If we could keep Derek White and then he still come to us, like you said, kind of outside the 9 spot. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's not like that's never happened before. I know he's projected top 5, but I mean, it's possible. So
man,
I don't know
anything is possible, man. Luka Doncic, they drafted freaking what's his name? 3 players got drafted before Luka Doncic. So I mean, anything can happen on draft night. Yeah,
exactly.
Even Hasheem Thabeet went 2nd overall once.
Yeah.
So you're right. Anything can happen.
Yeah. So I mean, it can be. I mean, like you said, like I think the draft is like top heavy at like 6 and 7, and then it kind of falls off.
It really does. Yeah.
Harrison, I don't know if you know Harrison from San Antonio Spurs talk. He's one of our OOC guys. He's been advocating a lot for the Spurs to trade down, to get rid of their 11th or 12th pick and maybe drop down to the late teens or in the 20s and maybe a future, an extra future first rounder in the next year or two. Because he just doesn't really believe in the quality of this draft, or not that he doesn't believe in it. He's just like, we don't need to be at 11 or 12. He's like, if it's a role players draft, the Spurs are good enough to draft at late, like we've been in the last year. We drafted at 19 and 29, and we got Luka Samanic and Keldon friggin' Johnson. Are you kidding me? So I don't know. It's a good decision. I'm not up to give up Derek White. Defensive reasons priority. He came in year 1 not year 1, technically year 2 or whatever for him. But last year he came in right away and guarded Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and all these dudes and held his own and made their lives tough. So it's hard for me to want to give up Derek.
I don't think I would pull the trigger on that either, though. To be honest with you, I'd have a really hard time getting rid of Derek White. I think he fits really well into the system. Honestly, I think the guys like him. It seems like the guys like him, at least. I mean, when you see, they're going out, he's always with them. And I think that's important to keep, your young core who like each other, keeping them together. Because there can be times where you got young guys who are fighting for, I'm going to be that guy. But I think a lot of our young guys like each other and they want to see each other grow, So I think it would be tough getting rid of him and keeping the continuity and the chemistry together.
Hey, Destin, go ahead, Destin.
And he's boring. I was just gonna say, and he's boring. I mean, and it's kind of rare to find young guys that's boring, and that's a good thing. He's boring.
It's a good thing, yeah. I know.
Lonnie Walker's boring. That's good. That's good. Yeah. So we gotta hold on to my boy.
On Noah's article, Noah, you compared him to Hedo Turkoglu. Maybe not saying that that's his ceiling, but maybe that's someone who you can kind of see him resembling in the future. Destin, what do you think about that?
Derek White resembling Turkoglu?
No. Denny.
Oh, Denny? Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. Because, I mean, as far as the size, shooting ability. And Turkoglu is very underrated. I mean, I remember he was a big part of Orlando's success. So, that's a really good. Yeah, that's a really good comparison. And on top of it, Denny, he has high basketball IQ. He can shoot. He can do basically everything. They say he's even a pretty good defender. So, I think that's a really accurate depiction. He might be even better than Turkoglu, though.
I think he could, just based off of the defensive capabilities. He's definitely, and at least in my opinion, he is a better defender right now than Hato ever was. But he definitely has those qualities where he can pass. He's a point forward. I mean, straight up, he's just a point forward. He has great basketball IQ, can pass, can shoot. And his defense, it may kind of struggle a little bit in the NBA because his athleticism isn't as good. But his timing and his defensive IQ are high. So I don't really worry about that with the Spurs. I mean, it's not like Derek's a crazy explosive athlete and he's leading all guards in blocks per game. I mean, I'm not really worried about that.
Oh, I love Derek. Right now, guys, I'm halfway through. Oh my God, I had to go to the beach, man. I had to get away out of my house. The beach opened up here at South Padre, and my dad has a spot out there. So I there was no one there, but I went to go just kind of get away. But I'm doing this. I'm doing a film room right now on Derek White and DeJounte on how they played together. There was only about 102 minutes. I'm almost done with it.
Yeah.
I'm almost done with it, but like Derek White is so freaking smart on the defensive end. So freaking smart. And the thing is, he's bigger than most. You know what I mean? He's bigger than most point guards in the NBA right now.
And who was it? Because it was a thing of beauty.
Plug.
And I thought
selfish plug right
here. It was a thing of beauty, man. Early this season, you could probably tell me who it was. Both of you guys could tell me who it was. But it was earlier in the season, and they were not playing together at all in the game. Of course, DeJounte was on minute restriction. And at the end of the game, the last play, it's like both of their defensive IQ.
I know what you're talking about. It was the Washington game. They came together
that was
and they
Washington.
stopped Bradley Beal at the very end there. They came together for the joint block or whatever. That was crazy. Yeah, I mean, I actually wrote an article about that, not to plug my stuff, but
no, you can always plug your stuff.
They should be playing together. They should be playing together because when they did, they won the game. I mean, quite literally, they won the game for us right there.
It was even cool. It was even cool to see both of their personalities after the fact, like how they are. Because, I mean, right after DeJounte walks off, like, I'm that guy. And then Derek White is just excited and celebrating with the guys. I was like, that's pretty awesome what just happened.
Like, that was, dude. That was. It was like, well, maybe that was early on, right? So it was like,
it was like the third game.
Like, maybe we're going to see it. All right, great. You know, everyone was talking about the potential behind it. But I think a lot of it had to deal with the minute restriction, to be honest. Believe me, if Pop knows that he needs to put them on the court together to win a freaking game, he knows that it's a pretty good defensive lineup. I think it was more about the minute restriction with DeJounte and really wanting to keep one of those two guys on the floor at all times this season, which is what they did for like 98% of the season. So I think that's kind of more what it was. When you said Hito Turkoglu about Denny, yeah, man, I always liked the way that Hito saw the floor. And like at his position, he was always a guy that was just getting a rebound, one dribble, and then just throwing it up the floor to someone running the floor, or hitting Dwight Howard, who was pinning his guy, at the free throw line for a dump down lob or whatever to him. And then he was just so savvy, and that's that's something that we get in Luka Samanic, and that's something that Denny could bring to the table as well. Just that really high basketball IQ at not the point guard position, that opens up a lot of things. Think about Boris Diaw, think about what he was able to do.
Oh yeah.
And Tiago Splitter and those guys.
Now thinking about the future, let's just say hypothetically we get Denny. So start lineup, let's say it's DeJounte, Lonnie, Denny, Luka. This is just us dreaming. So who would go with the center position? Would you stick with Jakob, or would you try to go find another center? I mean, just in the future when, LA is gone back to Portland and everything.
What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, I would stick with Jakob. I'm super high on him. There are a few things that I don't like he's not really a great offensive player. But I think if you have guys who have that sort of offensive versatility and they can do a bunch of different things for you, you don't have to worry about what he's going to do out there. You know what he's going to bring to the table on the defensive end. He's a guy who I think went super under the radar this year. One of the top blockers in the NBA, even blocks per minute, everything. I mean, he's amazing to me. I think watching him play basketball, he is just so smart. I would put him at center, no question. He would be that guy to be the defensive anchor. At least that's what I think.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think we're all on the same page here. I know Harrison likes to throw out the stat that he was like third in the league at rim protection, this year, and he got crap minutes. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's his fault. It was really a lot of just the style of play. It was like. And then he got hurt, right? And then so he got hurt also. But I like what you said, Noah, because I agree. I talked about it on the other pod. It's like he never got the chance to show us how much he improved over the summer. And I think that there was a huge improvement because you saw it like 5 times maybe. Like you got to see what he improved on maybe once or twice throughout the season. He never got significant run and rhythm and flow to actually do it consistently. But if you put him at the 5 and, then you're running kind of like it's like the lineup that you were talking about, Destin. To me, it reminds me of like a Houston Rocket lineup with Clint Capella. Like he would have that. He would have that. Not that we would have that same offense, but he would have the Clint Capella role in that offense, which is just set hard picks, roll hard, finish at the rim. Obviously, he's capable of doing much more. I think he has a high basketball IQ too. He can really pass the ball when he wants to. But ultimately, the defensive upside that he brings to the table for not just like he's a guy that is going to make everybody else better on defense. Derek White, DeJounte Murray, he's going to like that's going to just enable everyone else to be better defenders. And I think he's another guy. He's another free agent this summer. And I would hate to see him go as well. But that's going to wrap it up here. So that's going to be it for Order on the Court podcast. Destin, why don't you tell people where they can find you, man?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Clan the Spurs Fan. Subscribe to that. You can find me on Facebook, Clan the Spurs Fan. And you can go to Instagram and find me at Spurs Wave or Spurs Dynasty.
Awesome, man. The first ever guest on the show, Noah. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciated you, man. This was a lot of fun. Great discussions. We got to get you on more, man, whenever you're free. Why don't you tell everyone else where they can find your stuff?
Definitely. Well, thank you for having me on, and you can find me at Pounding the Rock. Read any of my stuff there. Really appreciate that. And you can also follow me on Twitter at @n_Magaro. And thanks again for having me on, man. This was super fun. I'd love to do it again.
All right, guys, and I'm Rob from Bucking Spurs. You can find everything that we're doing on YouTube. Go to buckingspurs.com. Make sure to follow us on on Instagram and Twitter. Just to give you a shout out, just to give you guys a heads up, there's a contest that we're doing right now on Instagram. Dustin, can you tell them a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So if you want to enter the contest, we're doing a giveaway with 2 decals, so 2 winners. And all you have to do is you go to YouTube, subscribe to Clan the Spurs Fan on YouTube, subscribe to Bucking Spurs, and subscribe to Order on the Court. You subscribe to those 3 channels, and you'll be entered for a giveaway for Sunday, the upcoming Sunday.
All right, Spurs Nation, last thing here. You are in control of what we talk about first on Tuesday's live stream. Right now, if you go to OOCspurs.com, the options right now are Luka Samanic, Tim Duncan, the coach, Rudy Gay, or would you just like us to scan Spurs Twitter and see what we find, right? So it's up to you guys. Why don't you go to OOCspurs.com and tell us what you guys want. There's a poll there. You can see it. It's on your mobile or on a computer, wherever you guys want to go. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys. Go Spurs, go. And court is adjourned.
Order in the court! Order in the goddamn court!
Sir, you're out of order.
All rise.